The Castodonian Empire was a reptilian species that prided itself on being able to take down many planets. Take many planets and force those inside to become their servants, their vassals, their own, well, not much more than slaves, really. That is, until they reached a certain planet. A certain planet that had no fleet, no defense satellites, yet somehow had put up such a defense that over 70% of the initial invasion force was simply lost, unretrievable. This was not only in personnel, but also equipment. They didn't understand how these humans could fight so well. They were completely outclassed, and the invasion force was well over 10 billion, and yet for some reason it took several of their own forces to take down these humans. But eventually they did, resulting in very large pieces of the planet being scorched down to nothing but molten glass, in one case forcing a supervolcano to explode, which forced many of their own to have to hide. The ash cloud made many of their ships completely useless. However, it also grounded everything the humans had. It took at least 5 years. 5 long years, as every single time they pushed, these humans would push back. Many of the vassal species were simply cut down in mass from the squatted ones that the humans called grunts, which were actually almost as tall as humans were, even though they were very, very cowardly, to some of the Anrek that were very tall, yet a bit slow, but very difficult for humans to take down. But somehow they always seemed to find a way. Seeing that these humans were such good warriors made the emperor and his cabinet want the humans. They didn't want to destroy the planet. That was never a good idea. Why destroy all these resources and then have to hunt across the entire galaxy trying to catch them all? Instead, no, they wanted the entire planet. Not only that, but they wanted the humans to be under their command. Eventually, humanity was just overrun. Many of their forces were struck from space. They couldn't amass in significant enough forces to push back and retake much of the land itself. They could take small parcels, but that was it. It was a losing war, and they knew it. But they fought with stronger and stronger vigor with every kilometer lost. They made the Castodonians fight for every inch. But they still lost. It was less than a decade afterwards, after the Castodonians used their own technologies to, as the humans put, juice up their soldiers, to bring them back to their prime, to make them stronger, faster, sometimes more aggressive. Those that had lost limbs were able to either have them regenerated or have a cybernetic limb put on, but every single one was brought into the fray as a warrior for the Castodonians. And just in time, too. As the Castodonians had spread out and still conquered planets with very, very primitive life forms on them, they didn't realize that they were spreading far too thin. Because of this, one of their rivals, one of their only rivals, the Vintu, decided that they wanted a piece of the Castodonians. In fact, by the way they assaulted, it looked like they wanted the entire thing. The Vintu pushed into Castodonian space opposite where Earth was located, and they began to plummet onto each planet en masse, taking them over in record time. The Castodonians moved all their forces as fast as they could, but that's a lot of sectors to cover, and unfortunately that meant that their ships were arriving 1, 2, 3 at a time, and it was never enough. Though their technology was much stronger than the Vintu were definitely on the numerical advantage. Along with that is they were very aggressive, and because of this, the Castodonians looked for a solution, any solution, and what they found was human. The humans deployed were told that their families would be saved, they would be secured, they would remain healthy if the humans succeeded. And succeeded they did. The humans seemed to delight, laughing the entire time as they ripped through Vintu as though they were not there. The Vintu being very tall, four-fingered amphibian, almost reptilian species, though taller than humans, seemed to be very weak in comparison. A single human could simply jump onto a Vintu, grab a hold of its head, pushing with his feet into the pelvis bone and ripping the head clean off the shoulders in one solid movement. The Vintu were afraid. Not only did they face a group just as dangerous as them, but now they had the Castodonian technology, and because of this, the Vintu tried one last chance. They went straight towards the homeworld of the Castodonians. The Castodonians were not ready. Not at all. This had been a peaceful planet for nearly a millennia, and now they are being overrun. The only ones close enough to help were humans. A small freighter bringing humans in. They were immediately ejected from their stasis units and brought up to speed and immediately brought down to the planet, brought down on the opposite side, but it did not take long for them to completely tear apart the Vintu. The Vintu were not expecting this. They expected to have free reign. They expected to be able to force themselves onto Castodonian females without problems. They felt that they could simply chew apart Castodonians and have a full meal. This is what they had until the humans arrived. Even as the humans were being tore apart by shrapnel, energy weapons, ballistic weapons, explosions of every type, they just kept going. They used the Castodonian weapons and shields to their advantage, pushing through, extending an energy weapon and slicing through the Vintu like they weren't even there. Their armor allowed them to push even farther than their juiced up bodies could do. It was astounding. But humans are still human. They can die if someone tries just hard enough. The humans might have been pushing very far, but their numbers were dwindling over time. For days they pushed on, never stopping, but the numbers did not seem to want to last. Eventually, only 4 humans made it to the Emperor's castle. When they got inside, they found that the Vintu had almost made it through to the keep. The only one in the keep at that point was the Emperor himself, 3 of his wives, and only 1 of their sons, an infant. They listened at the door as all the battle was going on around them. They felt the explosions rock the place, and they just worried if anyone would get there in time. The Vintu were relentless. Then they heard something they didn't expect. The Vintu crying for help, screaming in pain. And when they checked the monitors, all they saw was a blur pass by. Sometimes there would be some sort of energy bolt that came out. Sometimes there was ballistic fire. Sometimes there was an explosion, but always an image that flashed past. And it wasn't until one of these images went into a group of Vintu and started tearing them to pieces, seemingly with their bare hands, that an explosion happened and that shadow was splashed against the wall. The human body in its suit slid down slowly. The explosion turning their insides into nothing but goop. The humans had come, but could they save them? Eventually, a knock was heard on the exterior of the keep. The doors, several meters thick and several layers, was being knocked on, almost a friendly greeting. Those inside the keep looked on in horror as the last of the security got ready and stared at the door, but as they opened it, what they saw surprised them. It was a single human, covered in Vintu blood and guts, its boots squishing a little as he stepped forward, the sight making the wives uneasy and one of them vomit. The little one cried a little bit, almost as though it could sense the fear in the room, but the human had no aggression. It simply walked up towards the emperor. It did not give a salute. It did not kneel. It did not bow. The human just said, "The area is clear." Immediately, the security looked at each other with confusion, and with one simple command, they all ran out to secure the area and came back later and simply stated, "There are no Vintu." They are all running away. The last of them are leaving the planet, and any of them that are around are already dead. The humans slaughtered them all. The emperor was amazed. He was pleased beyond measure. He looked at that single human and said,
"You have just saved our people. I could not be more grateful. I could not be more grateful for myself, my kin, my people. Everyone here owes you a great debt, a debt I'm not sure that we could ever repay, but by my own name."
As he stands up and even places his hand over his heart, raising his other hand out, and this being a declaration saying that whatever his words came next, that he would follow without question.
"Whatever you ask, whatever you desire, I shall grant it without hesitation. State what you want, human."
The human just looked at him for a second, turned his head a little bit as if saying, "You don't already know?" The human straightened up as another splat from Vintu entrails landed on the ground. He said, "Emperor, I want one thing and one thing only." The emperor kind of grinned and motioned over to one of the few females that was around and motioned her forward, and the human said, "No, no, no. No, that would be too simple." Now the emperor had his full attention on the human as he told the female to stop. The human took one more step forward, almost to emphasize his next words. "I want Earth, and I want you to let my people go." Realizing the significance of this, the emperor almost sat back down. His legs actually got wobbly, realizing that if he loses Earth, he loses the humans, and he needs the humans. What is he to do? He stumbles for a moment and then says,
"I am unsure that I can deliver that request. Perhaps you should choose something else."
once again motioning to the females in the room. The human simply glared at him and said, "You said that anything I wanted, you would deliver. Would you go back on your words at this moment?" The emperor realized that he was stuck. The entire room, what was left of his own cabinet, his own family, what was left of them, were looking at him, and he simply stated,
"Then it shall be. As of this moment, Earth shall be known as a free planet. Though inside Macedonian territory, they are their own planet and its native population. The humans shall not be under our rule."
Everyone just about gasped, but the human only did one thing. He said, "Thank you," and he smiled. Hello, everybody. This is Syntax. Thank you for joining me today on this short story. Now, before I go, I need to say that today's winner is Tim MC, and I also need to send out some giant thank yous to the supporters of the channel, and they are SS Demon, Guardian Sage, Sir, MTF Guard, Brian Kemp, Steve Uwig, Julius Boone, and Erica Gem. Thank you all so much for supporting the channel. Everybody else, I'll see you on the next one. This is Syntax, punching out.